Hi, I'm Nick Gilbert, attorney in San Antonio, Texas, and I want to start this video by saying that I am not a CPA, I am not an accountant, and I do not give tax advice. I tell that to all my clients. I tell them I do not do tax stuff for other people. I do not give tax advice. You need to speak with your CPA or your accountant for that. That being said, there are certain things that I'm comfortable talking about LLCs and how to write off your expenses. It's something that people ask me a lot about when they want to form an LLC is if they're using it to avoid taxes, or they've heard stories about people that have an LLC and they use that LLC to avoid taxes to a huge degree. Usually that's not going to happen. Your advice from your attorney and your CPA is going to differ a lot from the Instagram influencer talking about starting LLCs and hiring their kids and doing all kinds of weird things to save huge numbers on their taxes and pay no taxes. However, when you have an LLC, so in the case of pass-through taxation, so this LLC has not made an S-Corp election, there are ways to write off all of your expenses for your LLC and get your income, so your net income, way down based on those expenses. So I do tell folks, when you have a small business as an LLC and you're drafting up your Schedule C to attach to your 1040 that will report the income and expenses from the business, you want to keep track of the expenses that you're having for your business, and that includes everything for home offices. You want to do your square footage calculations. You want to make sure that you're calculating how much of a power bill, how much of the internet bill is for your business. When you have different expenses for things like hiring your attorney to start your LLC, those are startup costs. So everything that you do for your attorney, everything you pay your attorney to start up your LLC, that's going to be a startup cost that you need to include as legal services, especially for things like paying your accountant to prepare the return in the first place. That's going to be a write-off. There's a lot of misnomers out there about write-offs. There's all kinds of things people say, oh, you just buy it for the business and write it off, no big deal. Well, those have to add up at some point. Again, the IRS is hip to this LLC game. This is not their first rodeo. You are not the first person to file an LLC return and think that you're going to get away with something that really isn't a write-off. And it may never come up. It may be fine for the next 100 years and it won't come up. But when it does come up and the IRS sends an auditing agent over and they have to go through the books and records and figure out why you wrote off your niece's birthday party as a business expense, that's going to come up. It's going to be an uncomfortable situation when you have to pay back taxes and penalties and percentage interest on that birthday party. That's going to look really bad. It's not going to be something that's going to be fun to deal with. So you might pay some taxes now when you're forming your LLC and working through it, because you can't write off every single thing that comes through, but there are ways that we can help do that. So for your LLC, when we're drafting your operating agreement, usually what I tell folks is that you're going to have annual meetings. When you have those annual meetings, the meetings themselves, if you spend money to have those meetings, those are things that you can write off. Okay, so if you are having that meeting at a place that is not your home or you're not your regular desk, even in a single member LLC, those meetings are eligible for some kind of write-off. Now, some people try to write off an entire vacation because they had a 15-minute meeting on one day of a 7-day trip. That's not going to fly. There are specific formulas that you should follow when doing that. But again, these are things that we set up as attorneys when we're forming your LLC that will allow your accountant to give you the formulas to say, hey, here's how we can write it off based on the operating agreement for your LLC and the required meetings that you have to have. So again, we're going to set you up to do the write-offs, and we're going to set you up to be able to handle the business at hand. But I'm not going to give you that advice. It's more, I tell folks that if you need my tax advice, you're in a real bad place, because I have someone else do my taxes because I don't trust myself on it. So one of those things you're going to have to figure out. Your lawyer and your CPA work together. I always work with CPAs when they want to. will copy us both on an email and say, hey, I've got a question about, if my operating agreement allows for this kind of thing. That's one thing that you can always look at. So we'll always want to work with other people when we're doing that kind of thing. When we want to have tax advice, we'll loop in a CPA or accountant with your tax questions if you have them. But otherwise, we can get you set up, get you taken care of, and help out start that LLC.